Hello and welcome. We're getting ready to start operating round one for the second time. We just finished our second stock round, and as mentioned before, these can all be removed. I am filming from a different camera. This is going to be a short video. I'm in the middle of cooking breakfast, and I realized I wanted to hone in on some rules. Now that you've seen this game a little bit more, you may notice that there are very particular rules that prevent you from doing things, or there's times when you want to do things. But the biggest one is we can't do much until those green trains are bought. And so that's why we're obsessing over it so much. And the other thing is I want to look at a 2 train more closely. You can see that in a 2 train, it rests on a 4+4. So what does that mean? What that means is the very moment someone buys one of those 4 trains, every 2 train in the game is immediately out of the game. Immediately. There's no warning, the warning you have is that all the 3 trains have to be purchased first. Okay, so you have to time this game, and you want to at least own 1 3 train, because if you only own 2 trains, you're out of luck. And here's the other thing. The level 2 trains, the yellow ones, there are 30 of them, and there happens to be 30 companies in the game. The level 2 trains, as you know, there's 1 for each company. The level 3 trains, there's only 20 of them. So that means 10 companies, if every company bought just 1 level 3 train, 10 companies aren't going to get one. And it is possible that 1 company is going to buy 2 level 3 trains. So what does that mean? I mean, what's going to happen to those 10 companies? Well, they're in trouble. That's the first thing. The second thing is we have 2 options in this game. The first one is you can do mergers. Because remember, these little miners here, they're in the regional track, company B, F, C, H, K, etc. They can merge into a major. And so you don't need a 3 train for those miners anymore. So if 10 of these miners were to merge into a major, every major in the game would be able to buy a 3 train very comfortably. Okay? In fact, we would have 2 to spare because there's 12 miners. Now, what you're going to find is some of the miners are going to buy 3 trains because they'll be able to afford it, and some of them won't, and they're going to have to merge. And that's sort of how this game goes. The second option is let's say you do rust before your trains rust. So remember I said it happens immediately, but what also happens immediately is you get a chance to go national. What does national mean? National is that government train that we haven't seen yet. And so I'll explain it more when we get there. But in a nutshell, they're just like regionals, meaning like if I became a national here in Great Britain, I can't lay track outside of Great Britain, just like the regionals can't. The majors, however, will be able to, as soon as we get the mergers going. But the thing with the nationals is you're going to get 9 track points to upgrade tiles. And you may be thinking, well, why would I want 9 track points? Look, Great Britain's almost completely covered. You got to remember, if you're upgrading to green, it's going to cost 2 track points for each space. And then the metropolises cost 4, because it's always double. It costs 2 when it's yellow. It'll cost 4 when it's green and brown, and etc. So it's real easy to burn up your track points. Now, with all of that being said, it's the government does not even need to have routes. You can just literally count. You can say, okay, I'm going to count this city, this city, this city, this city, this city, and this city. And you can just bounce around. You don't even have to trace routes. It's just you get income for your cities as long as you have some track on it and it's connected somewhere. Okay? So government trains or government companies are all about cash. You're going to get a lot of cash with them. And also they're going to move up on the stock track every time because they don't carry any money. So you know how we have separate money for our company? A government company is run by the bank. So the bank pool is where all the money goes. So whoever owns shares of the government company, of course, will still get paid. And then the government company will bump up one. So you may be thinking, well, that's just amazing. Government companies sound way better than the others. And that leads to the last rule I haven't explained very well, and that's Constantinople. Okay, so Constantinople, as you know, is our goal, and we're trying to get there, and we're trying to connect to it from Paris, Madrid, London, Berlin, St. Petersburg. I think I covered them all. And why are we trying to do that? Well, there's two things that happen when you go to Constantinople. There's a bonus you get the very first time you make it to Constantinople. And then there's a bonus you get every time you make it to Constantinople, including the first time, okay? So the very first time you make it to Constantinople, that's what we call an OE run. Very first time, you get to make a choice. So let's say your route would have earned you $200. The first choice you have is you can just take $200 in cash and give it to the company. And then you take another $200 and pay it out like you normally would if it was a normal route. So your company just gets a bonus of $200, all right? And whatever it is, it's just double whatever your run made. That's the first bonus you can do. That one's not as desirable. Very few people do it, but there is one scenario where that one is very valuable, and that's when you're near the end of the game. If you're finally doing an OE run for the first time at the end of the game, you might actually want to just take the cash. And that's because the trains at the end of the game are so expensive, that cash could really infuse your company. But the other bonus is the one that most players take. And that bonus is every time we meet our value amount, our stock goes up. So I'm just going to use this as an example. So let's say my stock was right here. If I made $310 with my company, I would go up one. Well, with the OE run, I'd still get to go up one for making $310, but my first time bonus, I get to choose to do 1, 2, 3 more bumps for free. So my stock just skyrocketed from $310 to $490. And so my personal wealth, if I owned a lot of shares of that company, just went up. So you saw that I finished a stock round where I sort of skipped doing turn by turn by turn, and I just went and everybody just bought their own shares of stock. And you might be thinking, well, why am I not having them buy other people's shares? This is why. If we do an OE run to Constantinople, you get to bump your stock up by 3 spaces for free. And so the more shares you own of it at a cheaper price, the more value you just earn for yourself. So this is about personal net worth, this game. So by doing an OE run on companies that you personally control, you're in control of your own destiny, if you will. And you're going to be able to get a 3 bumps in your stock price for free, just for doing a run like you would any other time. So that's the amazing part about Constantinople, and that's why all the players are investing in themselves and in their own companies. You don't have to do it, but it's a very tough strategy if you don't. You have to be really careful with what you're doing, and you have to be mindful that if other players see you investing heavily in their company, they'll intentionally tank the company and won't go to OE, Constantinople, and they won't give you the bonus because they know it's helping you. So you got to be mindful of that, and that's why just investing in your own companies in the early game is the best route. Now, there's other 18xx games where that's not a good strategy, but on this one, that is a very sound strategy. And then lastly, I got to get back to cooking my breakfast. The bonus you get every time you go to Constantinople, it's written over here on the sheet. I pretty much have it memorized, but I don't want to quote it wrong. When you go to Constantinople, they call it the Orient Express bonus. And if you're in train phases 2 through 4, you get an extra $30. So remember I said you run a route and you made $200? Well, you would get an extra 30 or an extra 60 at 5 or 6, or at the end you get an extra 100. Constantinople itself is no different than Madrid or St. Petersburg or Paris in terms of money. But when you add that bonus to it, it now becomes elite and probably one of the best playing in the whole game. So that's why going to Constantinople is very important. You just get more money. And then lastly, you may be wondering, okay, well, where's the value places on the game? Right here in Suez is worth 120. That's pretty good, but it's really hard to do, and very few people do it. Israel is a super high-paying place. and it's worth connecting to. Berlin and London are on the same par with Israel. Northern Sweden is on the same par as Israel. Then over here, you can see North Africa and the Americas make a lot of money for you. But the best paying spot in the entire game is New York. It goes up to 160. Everywhere else I just quoted for you goes up to 120. And I believe Moscow, no, Moscow does not. So I covered all the 120s in the game. Berlin and London are the only two cities we develop that go to 120. The other ones that go to 120 are these red zones. So they're worth factoring in. And like I said, Israel is a really nice one to get. And of course, New York. Now, I got to get back to my breakfast, but when I start up the next video, I'm going to start diving into what each country's strategy is. Like if you're in Britain, like Lord Wellington, there's a specific strategy you have there that's different than the strategy you have when you're in Russia. But thanks for watching and for watching the short video.